Hello and welcome to Breakfast Central on News Central on a Friday morning. We are back and ready to go. The weekend is here finally, and we do know what that means. It means that you'll be enjoying a full dose of Breakfast Central today, and then starting off from tomorrow, it's going to be Breakfast Extra. But in the meantime, let's quickly welcome you and tell you that we have a lot for you, a lot in store. Stories still coming from River State is very rife. Not forgetting too, latest story from Oyo, and also not forgetting very interesting conversations where you do have gubernatorial candidates. More importantly, you do have governors and you'd say would-be presidents meeting together to fan them away in order to ensure that Nigeria is not, in quotes, captured. But we'll tell you all about that in a moment. I am Joe Hansen saying good morning.
And I'm Benga Aburo. Welcome to Breakfast Central, the best place to kickstart your day with the latest news, information, and insightful discussions. Like Joe said, we have quite a lot to talk about today, especially with regards to governance affairs in our country. So many things happening in Abuja and elsewhere. So sit back, relax, grab that coffee, and let's dig in. Joe, where do we start from today, our wake-up conversations?
Yeah, Binga, waking up with the conversations, no doubt. Let me take a sip first, and then...
this story is really what
I think I need to take that sip again,
yes. Unbelievable.
Because you need to cool off before you actually launch in. What do the motivational speakers say? They say you need to perspire before before aspire. Well, this is a story of a Kogi state lawmaker who starts off the wake-up conversation this morning. Well, he has empowered members of his community with something that will shock you. Well, is a motorcycle tire the most pressing need for constituents? If I ask you, what other essential support like healthcare, education, or business grants could have a greater impact? Do you think so? Well, the video you're watching right now on your screen is a Kogi state lawmaker who is indeed empowering his constituents with what? No, that's not food. No, that's not a medical care. No, that's not even money. Oh, you think it's food? Not at all. But it's actually tire. And each person is getting one. I don't know if it's actually for a tricycle or a motorcycle, Benga, but let's just take a look at what's going on. Take a look for yourselves.
Congratulations. Camera low.
This is very shocking, to say the least. And the gentleman there is saying congratulations. Congratulations on what? Is this the most pressing needs of your constituents? And then there's a handshake. You're doing it in front. You're doing it in front of the cameras. You think you've done something really great. How low can we get as a people? This is a new type of low. Like, doesn't he have advisors? Doesn't he talk to his people? And where are the motorcycles?
You're even asking of the motorcycles, Benga. How many tires does a motorcycle use? One. So they were shaking you, congratulations, you collect one tire. So you get home. Are you going to hang the tire in your room and then look at it?
Maybe there are unicycles somewhere that they didn't show us. Because what's the point? What's the point? This is... I
can't believe this.
It's really strange, these sort of things that happen in
I can't believe this,
and our leaders just get away with all of this in broad daylight. We need to really hold the politicians accountable, because that's an insult to his constituents, sharing a single motorcycle tire in the name of empowerment.
It's really sad because you may wonder that we think by now in 2025 we may have abandoned this old method of empowering constituents or constituencies, or you could say communities. In the past, we do know that grinding machines, not forgetting to, we've seen even shovels are being given and so on. Some have said it's to empower the farmers, wheelbarrows and so on and so forth. But let us, if you're actually representing the people, let us take time. If you're watching this and you represent the people, I know, Binga, no matter what we say here, for some it's just mere gibberish. We're just blabbing. Because as the one representing my people and the one who has been chosen or elected by the people, I can choose to do whatever I want. As far as I'm concerned, you news anchors are just blabbing. Let me keep doing what I do. But you see something, until we come to the agreement that we would never, that's the word, the key word here is never, we would never move forward as a people, because there's one truth, and I want to state it here this morning. What makes a nation grow, it starts from community. So from one community to another community, like they say, from one community at a time, and then you start going into local governments. From one local government, of course, it forms the state. From one state, of course, it forms states, and you know what it means when they say states, of course, come together to form a country. So if you don't start from this is grassroots. So this is what you give at the grassroots level, Binga. You can imagine when if I'm a lawmaker and I'm giving this at the grassroots level and I eventually make it to the state level where I'm heading a state, I mean, come on, still buy more tires. This time, give them a tire and possibly add slippers, a pair of slippers.
Well, wonders shall never end. Now, moving away from Kogi State to Oyo State, if you do recall, last year, around Christmas, there was a stampede, and the Oyo State government filed charges against the Oni of Ife's ex-wife, Oriyomi Hamzat. She was charged and taken to court for manslaughter because there was a stampede, and quite sadly, quite a number of people died. But the latest is that the Oyo State government, although it seems to be good news because we all follow the story and understand as she was just trying to do good, you know, give out palliatives and Christmas gifts. But what motivated the Oyo State government? Now, they've decided to drop the charges. Now that they've dropped the charges against the former queen. Was it due to lack of pressure, of evidence rather, political pressure, or strategic moves to maintain relationships with influential figures? Does this mean the 35 children who lost their lives in the process won't get justice, or are they forgotten? Because you can't just drop charges. Lives were lost. What happened? What's the why? You should give us reason for dropping these charges. Does it mean these children won't get justice? What lessons have we learned from this episode? These are questions that are begging for answers in Oyo State.
Very, very key questions, Binga, very key questions, because now you start to wonder and start to think what the future really holds for the families who have lost their children, their loved ones, because there was a stampede. Whether we like it or not, if we have to paint this picture, we like to paint it with a brush that shows the good deeds, which is the good side, and of course the negative one, which happens to be the bad side. The good side is the princess herself wanted to do good for her community. There we go again. But Benga, can you see the difference between what she wanted to do and what the lawmaker was doing? Can you see the difference? She wasn't giving out tires. She was giving out food, and then there were announcements or pronouncements, if I'm right, if I can recall, and my memory serves me right, that funds would equally be given, funds in terms of cash. And we do know that we live in very precarious times. The situations are tough. So everybody who heard that, oh, you can also win money, decided to say, you know what, let's go there.
Yeah.
Okay, so that's the good deed. The bad side was that we've talked about this from the event organizing aspect. We've looked at it from crowd control aspect, yes, from security aspect, to ensuring that everyone who comes there is indeed handled appropriately in terms of registration, how they get in. And the videos did show that people were even flying. Let's use our, Nigerian lingua franca in terms of the pidgin. People were flying fence. You know, people were jumping in just to
part of
ensure
it,
that
yeah.
parents were even carrying their children and like, you know, like basketball, trying to throw them into the space and tell them, go and be great. You know, do something for your family, get something there. So can we rightly say that it was her fault that the crowd became uncontrollable? The answer, well, would be no.
They should have.
know?
I mean, people would differ. There are different ways to look at it.
Yeah.
Because in Lagos, for example, if you're organizing parties, all these event halls, they have emergency procedures. Some of them, even Lagos State would require you, if you ask event vendors, to provide an ambulance just in case you have emergencies in those venues. You do know when in precarious times, the economy of the country isn't so great. So they should, they should have had the foresight to anticipate the likelihood of a stampede. And when you're dealing with large numbers of people, you should streamline these events. This is not the first time people are giving away palliatives. Victor Osimhen, a Nigerian footballer, did come back home in December last year. Yeah. And it empowered some people with tricycles and all of that. And it was well organized. So let's do better next time. And she should have done it in collaboration with the state government so they can do a proper crowd control and event, organize it to be health and safety checks. Yes.
Well, it's one thing we're waiting for right now is we'll just wait to see what the justice system will do to either compensate the lives that have been lost and also ensure that they console the families and the families can be able to get closure on this situation. Because if you're just dropping charges, not just for the princess, but of course, we do recall what happened as well. The owner of the radio station was part of that and so on. Those are the videos you see there, the gory videos that we had, of course, to blur, where parents were equally killed, not just children. So husbands lost their wives. Wives who were possibly at home and said, you know what, why are we staying at home, kids? Let's go have fun at the same time. Let's win money. Let's get something for the family. And there you have it. It's really sad. But then again, I do get your point, Benga. I think the key aspect for us and for me here is, can we get at least a closure from the justice system on what would be done to the lives that have been lost? Are they going to be compensated? And if, like they said, they have to be compensated, how much? How much is too much for lives that have been lost? And I'm just going to hinge it finally on my own view. The point is, I don't think the princess would have woken up in the morning surreptitiously saying, listen, I'm just going to make sure that people will come and die. No, she didn't think about that. She just wanted to do good. And this happened. It could happen to anyone, unfortunately. But then again, lessons have been learned. And let's see what will happen from here.
Okay.
Yeah, so let's move to our final story on Wake Up Conversations. It's got to do with River State, and I bet you know that the conversations are still, ongoing. The National Assembly yesterday did indeed accepted the emergency declaration by the #1 citizen, President Bola Tinubu. There was mild drama here and there, especially in the House of Representatives, where indeed one of the sitting rep members wanted to speak, and he was making a point, Benga. He was clearly saying that, listen, why don't we take a head count and find out if we are enough, up to two-thirds. Yeah.
Rightly so, and it didn't get his way, and it was subjected to a vote, and so many civil society organizations and lawyers, they're quite livid at the moment at this, what they termed unconstitutional behavior by members of the National Assembly. It's a house of laws, and they refuse to follow the law. The Constitution clearly says should be subjected to a voice of an approval of 2/3 majority of the Senate and the House of Representatives. There was no head count, and let's take a listen to the gentleman, and then we'll come back.
Section 305, subsection 6B, that says for us to consider this President's request that this House must have 2/3 of members present. Mr. Speaker, may I please ask?
We already have our attendance registers, honorable colleague,
Mr.
and we will
Speaker.
rely on that to ensure.
Mr. Speaker, this is a constitutional.
Yes,
Can
we
we do a head count, Mr. Speaker?
There is no-
ascertain that we have a quorum.
Yes.
To ascertain that we have.
yes,
that we
yes.
have
Our attendance register will
our
guide us
constitutional
accordingly,
requirements.
honorable. Please. So our attendance registers will guide us accordingly. Members are still signing, and at the end of the day, we'll take attendance.
Mr. Speaker, can that be made available now for the members to know whether we have formed a quorum? Whether we have formed a quorum, Mr. Speaker, as enshrined in the Constitution, Mr. Speaker, so that our deliberations are not going to be deliberations based on illegality.
It is noted, honorable. Please, you can sit down.
It's so difficult to take a head count. You can't just rely on attendance register. You know how we used to do it in school. Someone would say, I didn't go for biology class, please sign for me, and all of that. And the honorable reps members said this is a constitutional matter. The entire world is looking at us. What is so hard about doing things the proper way? How do you subject such an important thing like declaring a state of emergency, suspending a sitting governor? Things that are this weighty to a voice vote. It's very, very uncalled for, and it's unconstitutional because the laws are there.
Well, Big, I can tell you that ever since the number one citizen, President Bola Tinubu, made this declaration on Tuesday night at 7 a.m. on a national broadcast, the most used word from Tuesday up until now this morning is unconstitutional. Unconstitutional. We've seen former presidents use it. We've seen, members of the opposition parties use it. We've seen some political, bigwigs also use it. Those who are not in agreement with the way the processes are being carried out. Now, don't forget, too, that the House of Representatives did sit yesterday because just as the 1999 Constitution says that the House of Rep, of course, not forgetting too, the Senate, everyone will actually look at it together and then they would have to agree in one voice. They do have nothing less than 2 weeks to do so, and they've done that immediately. And Nigerians are indeed what's the word? They're actually amazed, let me use that, surprised that, oh, wow, this is really quick. But then again, if you look at it on the other side, Binga, there have been threats, made, and I can say this categorically because yesterday, just around the evening/night, the governor of course, River State, because he is still the governor, put out a speech through his spokesperson and debunked some of the mentions or some of the points the president made in his national broadcast. Yes, he did do that yesterday. And one of it was that he said, no, I did not break the National Assembly just to ensure that I satisfy myself. In fact, National Assembly, the State Assembly is 80% complete, is in completion process. He did say that. He also said that he has been preaching peace, just as everyone knows. So why would he still send people to blow up, the pipelines? And just to score points that he wasn't doing that. If the president can recall, he was one of the persons who stood at the forefront and said, no, do not be agitated. Let's continue to go for peace. That it was the FCT minister who instigated and pushed the people by talking about the Ijaws being a minority. And he also said, if you recall, that it is not only the Ijaws that know how to blow pipelines. The Ekweres and all that can also blow pipelines. And in other words, the spokesperson was saying that, listen, let the security operatives, let them investigate properly. They would be able to find a key pointer to why these things are happening. There were also rumors somewhere that he did say that the pipelines that were blown, the others or whatever, did not come from him. So these are the conversations that will indeed linger. But then again, I think Nigerians can put this to bed eventually. When I say so, I simply mean that whatever the president has said, as long as he's gotten the nod of the National Assembly and the lawmakers, then it's as good as done.
Yeah, that's it. And we'll definitely look into the happenings of River State proper during the course of Breakfast Central today. So stay with us.
All right, let's take a look at our top stories for today on a Friday morning and see what we have in store for you this day. Today on Breakfast Central, Senate approves President Tinubu's emergency rule in Rivers State.
President Tinubu lauds National Assembly for upholding state of emergency ruling.
We'll also look at this very interesting story. Atiku Obi El-Rufai launch coalition to oust Tinubu in 2027. Is it possible?
And opposition parties call for an end of state of emergency in Rivers State.
And don't forget, we also have the front pages where you can call in today and be part of the program. Welcome to Breakfast Central. We'll be right back.
Welcome back to Breakfast Central. Yesterday, the Nigerian Senate approved President Bola Tinubu's proclamation of a state of emergency in Rivers State, citing constitutional powers under the amended 1999 Constitution. The emergency rule, which suspends Governor Siminalayi Fubara, his deputy, and all state assembly members for 6 months, grants the president the authority to enforce the emergency measures, subject to review within the period. Vice Admiral Ibok Ete Ekwe Ibas has been appointed as the sole administrator. Here's what you should know. To ensure oversight, the National Assembly has set up a joint committee to monitor the implementation of emergency measures and ensure transparency. Additionally, the Senate has established a mediation committee consisting of prominent Nigerians to help resolve the state's political crisis.
Commander-in-Chief, Federal Republic of Nigeria, on the state of affairs in Rivers State. And the Senate resolved as follows. 1. The Senate invokes the powers conferred on it by Section 305, subsection 2 of the 1999 Constitution of the Federal Republic of Nigeria as amended, and approve the proclamation of state of emergency declared by Mr. President in Rivers State of Nigeria. The Senate further directs the state of emergency stated in the proclamation document and the mandate of Mr. President to review, and hereby mandates the President to review and even to terminate the state of emergency at any given time, but not later than 6 months.
Meanwhile, the declaration has sparked mixed reactions, with some supporting it as a step towards restoring order, while other coalition of opposition parties, including leaders like Atiku Abubakar and Peter Obi, have called for its reversal.
This issue had to do with breach of security in whatever form. The question that should naturally be asked: who controls the police, the military, and the DSS, the governor or the president? Now, ladies and gentlemen, our demand and call to action. Number 1, immediate reversal. We call on President Bola Tinubu to immediately revoke this unconstitutional proclamation and reinstate the elected governor, deputy governor, and state assembly of Rivers State. 2, National Assembly reduction. We call on patriotic senators and representatives to vote against this illegal action when it comes before them for approval. The National Assembly must stand on the right side of history and not allow itself to be used to legitimize an unconstitutional power grab. Three, judicial intervention. We urge the judiciary to act swiftly in striking down this proclamation, as it sets a dangerous precedent that could be used to arbitrarily remove any governor in the future. very happy to read the ruling of a judge in Rivers State which directed a status quo. Number 4, Nigerians must defend democracy.
Well, don't forget that suspended Governor Fubara has also spoken to some of the allegations meted against him, giving clarity to the issue on ground. With the approval from both the Senate and the House of Representatives, the state of emergency in Rivers State is set to take immediate effect. Well, joining us to discuss this is indeed one way to look at the development and its implications. We do have public affairs analyst here in the studio, Dr. John, who joins us this morning. Welcome, Dr. Thank you so much for being here.
Thank you very much for joining us.
Good morning. It's good to be here. Yeah.
And also, we have the convener of the Integrated Summit Group, Dr. Chris Ekio, who joins us via video conferencing. Good morning and thanks for being here as well.
Good morning.
Okay. So, gentlemen, let's go straight into it. A lot of Nigerians, we're not expecting anything different to come from the National Assembly, even though some did hold on tight to a very thin hope. But let me start off first with you, Dr. Chris Ekio, before we do come back to the studios. What do you make of former Vice President's statement talking about Alhaji Atiku Abubakar, stating that this would set the precedents for future removal of governors from office? What's your take on that?
Yeah, so that I clearly stated yesterday when I was addressing a few people on social media, that what has happened few days ago, 2 days ago, or yesterday, set the precedents for setting fiat in a democratic system. Whereas the president has the power to do what he has done. It is clear before all that the situation in Rivers State is not heightened to the level where that state of emergency would have been invoked. But it has been invoked in good faith, whether timely or not is not known. So I also think that elder statesmen like the former president, Vice President and all the leaders in the country should have earlier on intervened before this hammer is drawn. Once the hammer is drawn, it's daring the president to say you must take it back. That's how I see it. Unfortunately, we don't like it. It has happened. It's unfortunate because as far as I'm concerned, the security situation in Rivers State do not qualify for a state of emergency.
Now, let's come to Doctor in the studio. Was this state of emergency necessary? Could the president have taken alternative measures? I know the damage has been done, it's declared it, but in hindsight, looking at the facts of the things on ground in Rivers State, people say, there was no violence. You've seen other states where worse things have happened. Did the president act in good faith?
Okay, there are two things that usually happen when it involves a governor or a president that a lot of people in the public are not aware of. We could take it from the angle of the security report. When, before anybody takes any action, the president, the governor, I think heavily they rely on what the security report says. Unfortunately, the members of public may not really have was a direct access to what the security report and intelligence briefings are all about. Having said that, it's also very necessary because I would have suggested that the Nigerian president is powerless if I had said that there's nothing other than this that he can do. For example, a call could have turned things around. I understand the fact that in Nigeria today we have a 40 political process, and we all unfortunately expect a 40 process to bring out a good product. It doesn't happen like that. All of this from the very beginning has been a 40 process. Even from the time that the primaries. Yes, even from the primaries. You talk about the time that the governor was even made the candidate of his own political party. They were discordant tune. I was here, we talked about the House of Assembly in Lagos the other day. People choose you, put you ahead of other people. It's a 40 process in a democracy. Then we also talk about what the president could have done. And for me, one major thing that I need us to continue to pay attention to is that the dividend of democracy, or the process of procuring dividend of democracy for the people of Rivers, should be paramount. And I do not say that, or I do not mean to say that the president could not have made a call that could have resolved this. Dr. Ekio made mention of something. What happened when this crisis broke out is that immediately everybody took side. And even when the president came across, why a lot of people are coming out to condemn the president today, it's not because they like Fubara that much. It's about the fact that the president, from the very beginning, had appeared to have taken side with Nyesom Wike. And when things happen, even when the state of emergency was declared, the question has always been, there are at least 3 known major actors in this whole file. You talk about the camp of the governor, you talk about the House of Assembly that are directly, members that are directly involved, you talk about the governor, you talk about the Minister of FCT. So if we are declaring a state of emergency in Rivers, logically, you're thinking that also the FCT minister should be suspended. And that will create an opportunity for everybody to come to the table and have a fruitful conversation, because at that point, all of them will have something that they are losing. So, but when you don't do it this way...
The AGF, Mr. Lateef Fagbemi, with due respect to him, said the minister has nothing to do with it, that he's not a member of the River State House of Assembly, he's not the governor, so why involve him? He's in Abuja. Okay, so, and that's, I completely respect him, and I accept the fact that he's not a member of, but of course, your channel at some point was hooking up with the press briefing, and you hear the kind of conversations that actually happen in those briefings. So it will be an abuse to the Nigerian psyche if anybody comes out to say that the minister is not a part of it. See, the minister is a major part of it. He didn't destroy the... And nobody is talking about destruction. We are just talking about imminent danger. And as long as you have back and forth between 2 political figures, I told you the other time that I came here, that what we have in Rivers is a contest between political people and political power. Unfortunately, anytime there's a conflict between the people and politics of a land, the politics of the land will always win. I was in Rivers, I told you, and I interviewed a set of people, and all of them seemed to be with Fubara. Fubara seemed to own the people, but politics, Wike owns the politics of Rivers. So you cannot say the man who currently owns the politics of Rivers is not part of the entire thing that is causing crisis.
All right. Let me bring Dr. Chris Sekeyo back to join us here. Doctor, can you tell us what your thoughts are, especially concerning the fact that the FCT minister was not mentioned at all in this entire process? It seems rather that he's been singled out and taken away from the entire conflicts that we've seen that's driven River State to this point.
All right, thank you. So first, I want to align my thoughts with the speaker there, who have said that there's no way you can exclude the FCT minister from culpability in the whole of this drama. He himself has said that he is part of it. He has shown publicly, and Mr. President has even tried to resolve the crisis between the FCT minister, the House of Assembly, and the governor. So it's no doomsday to say that he's involved. However, the issue that the president has done now, when he declares state of emergency in a state, it affects the state. It does not affect the federal office holder. So if he suspends him, we'll be suspending him maybe in another error. So you make one error in suspending the House, and you then make another one in the Federal Council. To suspend the minister, you would have done some gross misconduct. But this was a political struggle at the state level. What the president should have done is to caution his minister long even before now. He has not done that. So Nigerians completely feel that the president has taken side. The way the riot act was read, it was a riot act. The way it was read, it was a riot act. And the National Assembly, people will blame them, but trust me, if they refuse to comply, they too will start having their own battle with the president, just the way the Amefula-led House of Assembly would have having battle with the state. The way it's a faulty democracy, where in a way, the legislative arm is just a tug along with the executive arm. They really are not independent. Even though they pretend to be so independent, if they go against the position of the executive, there's always going to be this kind of conflict. So I see the National Assembly being cautious, not trying to oppose the president, so they don't have their own internal squabbles like you had under, I think that was Saraki and Buhari at one time. This kind of drama. So, and it puts them at a place where their Bel kingdom is not protected. So Nigerians are not happy. The reason is clear. The picture in Rivers State does not paint for a state of emergency. And if the president thought that in his wisdom what he needed to do was to do that, it does not call for suspension of the elected office holders for the period of time. He could have moved in security to improve save lives and property, and then find the mediation for politically to resolve this conflict between his appointee and the governor of the state. The issue here about power is that the governor is the governor. You cannot be governor and not be the governor. So he's trying to exercise his power as governor without recourse to how he became governor. And that's the conflict. That's the conflict. So the president, who is father of all, could have done it differently. But where we are now is crying over spilled milk. It has been pronounced, permission has been done, the Joint Assembly has approved it, whichever way they did. They also did not follow the constitutional principles of the majority of the entire House. They did a voice vote. So you can find out that to a large extent, for a common citizen, everybody feels that there's some kind of taking side already. Now, on the issue of security, I want to disagree a bit with what the speaker in the studio said, that there was a security briefing for the president, so nobody knows that. So if, for instance, as we are sitting now, the Joint Chief of Staff briefed the president that Lagos, there's a situation that threatens Lagos, he will just declare a state of emergency. You improve security. There's a lot of security situation in Nigeria. Zamfara, where they're stealing all the gold, and all the northern states where you have the bandits killing people every day. They've not declared state of emergency there. They are managing the situation head on with the military. So if there was a situation that created threat in River State, they would have improved first the mobile police and the security, stand down the crisis. But we had NSAS under Buhari. They didn't declare a state of emergency. So this one for me was hasty. The initiation of it may have been in good light, but it was hasty. However, this 6 months gives us the time for Nigerians to now look at the intent of Mr. President in doing this. Will there be justice? How will it go? What will happen next? Nigerians will look at it and that will not decide what will happen. Luckily, both assemblies, joint assemblies, the House of Reps and the Senate have said not later than 6 months. So you could reverse this next week, it could be in a month's time, but I expect now that everybody is sober, including Fubara himself. They will now have a need to reason for the people of River State and sheath their sword and reach a compromise. However, that compromise should not be at the expense of the people of River State or the resources of River State. It must be fair and equitable to all.
But do you think it's really going to be fair at the expense of the people of River State? That's one question. Secondly, I'd like you to touch on this. Okay, answer the first question.
The worst that can happen has happened. That is the worst that can happen. There's no other thing anybody can do, except they probably want to start chasing the governor if he doesn't have immunity again. As far as I'm concerned, he's still the elected governor.
Absolutely.
He still enjoys it. It's just been suspended. Go and rest first. Let us resolve the crisis. So, for me, this is the worst that can happen. So now, because this has happened, I think they should all go and be sober. It is not doing well for the minister, neither for the governor, neither for the people of River State. So they should go and be sober and make the kind of compromise that can give all parties a win-win so River State and Nigeria can be peaceful. For instance, the Ijaw people got involved, not because they are interested in the politics of Fubara and Wike. It was because Wike called them out. All this battle has been on in the last 2 years. Ijaw people generally didn't get involved. But when Wike started insulting the entire ethnic group, it then called for others to respond. And I said clearly that this can only happen in the Niger Delta. Okay. If, for instance, the minister was bold enough to say the same things he said about Ijaw people to, for instance, Igbo people or Yoruba people or Hausa people, he wouldn't be able to go to those places to go and dance again and many them be. You know, it was very embarrassing the way things went with the minister. So he can't deny that it's not part of it. However, this is the worst that can happen. The House of Assembly is down, the governor is down. He himself that is celebrating, he is not being celebrated. He is seen as a tyrant by the majority of Nigerians. So it doesn't help his political career. The goodwill that I enjoy, sitting here, I admire Wike a lot for his radicalism in terms of infrastructure development and courage. But from the day he started doing all these kind of funny things, he lost my support. And a lot of people like that, he's becoming unpopular. So for me, the president now needs to step back and get eminent Nigerians who are neutral and biased to go in and do what he needs to do. You can't throw the governor away. He's elected. Except he's impeached, he's still governor. So there must be some compromise that will make Rivers people happy. It's for a while. It may be earlier than the 6 months, and I hope it gets to be earlier than the 6 months.
Thank you, Dr. Chris Akio. Now, back to Dr. in the studio. We've seen the executive arm has done what it did by suspending. Now, we have three arms of government, the legislature, which should act as a check on the executive. What do you make of the swift way of the approval of the state of emergency, especially through a voice note yesterday by both the House of Representatives and the Nigerian Senate. And Sahara reporters also came out with a publication alleging that foreign exchange, US dollars, exchange hands to, ease the process. What do you make of all of this? And what does he say about the relationship between the executive, the APC-led executive, and the 10th Assembly?
Okay. First, we'd like to say that what makes democracy is actually the Assembly, the National Assembly or the House of Assembly. While we were under military rule, we had the executive, we had the judiciary. But what makes democracy is actually the representation of the people. And the Assembly, both the National Assembly and the Houses of Assembly, they are very, very central to anything that will happen in democracy. And one of the ways that I think we can also facilitate progress and development in our country is for us to have a National Assembly that works with the executive. Again, one of the ways to derail our democracy is to have a National Assembly that is a rubber stamp to whatever the decision of the executive is. So having the ability to draw this line is where legislative wisdom...
How would you describe the 10th Assembly? Is it a rubber stamp? Because what we're seeing these days is ask and it shall be given.
Okay, because also when you look at the fact that the majority of people in the National Assembly are from the party of the president, usually the leadership of the National Assembly and all of that, I do not have a problem if an APC person or legislator approves the request of an APC president. But here's the problem. The problem is that where is the voice of opposition?
All silent.
Where's the voice of opposition? And usually the opposition may not even have their way. But we just want to hear them say something.
Maybe they don't have the numbers.
Oh, it's not about the number. It's about saying your conviction and directing your conviction and letting the people in power to see that on this particular matter, you actually differ. The concept of opposition is not to have their way. It is to have their say. But when you build a National Assembly where you do not have the say, you do not hear the say of the opposition, you do not seem to know where they are, then the question should just be directed at the principle of opposition. So now, for example, we have heard the voice vote, and I listened to it very carefully. It's not supposed to be a voice vote, but voice vote has been called for. We didn't have a single nay in the Senate. It was in the House of Reps that we had.
I mean, you need to have a very baritone voice for your name to come out.
It's just what it is. It's an understanding that has been created for this government, but politicians must learn how to direct the essence of cooperation to development rather than derailing democracy through acceptance of everything that comes their way.
All right. There's a major question that's ongoing in this entire, we're going to call it the entire drama that everyone seems to be talking about, and I'd like to get your input and your own side of the story. I'm going to start first with Dr. Akiyo. The point is this. Now, we do know and we do understand that budget presentation was a major challenge, especially in Rivers State, where the now suspended governor was told to represent the budget to the Martins and Mewule, faction, because whether we like it or not, it's been proven that there was indeed a faction in the assembly. And because of not being able to carry on that budget presentation, which he eventually tried to do, but of course was shut out from the assembly, this didn't happen at all. Now, we do have a sole administrator. The president says that the budget would actually be approved and given to him. So, who is the sole administrator going to present the budget to? Is it the National Assembly or the Joint Assembly? And who is going to checkmate how these funds are spent? Remember, you do have the governor who also oversees these things and the State Assembly, but they are no more. They're suspended. So how do you think this would play out now, especially for the people of Rivers State? Or do you think that the president didn't possibly think this through carefully with his team?
All right, so that's the issue with sole administratorship. Way back, we used to have those people they call the Milan or the Solad. Now, what they have done technically is to invoke a doctrine of necessity upon Rivers State, where the National Assembly now has become like the legislative arm of the of Rivers State. And so they've directed that the solar administrator would have to take the budget to them and the spending to them for ratification. Once they do that, he's then empowered to spend. Now, the only difference here is that if people have elected a governor who should spend upon whom they have now, given power to expend on their behalf. In this case, the president has appointed somebody to expend on the behalf of the citizens. So it thwarts the intent of democracy. Democracy is supposed to be power derived from the people, for the good of the people. But when you start appointing people, then it becomes an appendage of Abuja. It's like another ministry, like FCT. So Rivers State will be operated now in these 6 months, the way FCT is being operated, to manage the tension. And that's what I'm saying. What tension are they managing? So for me, it's something that is hasty, and we have to watch. Luckily, in all of this, the Solar will also be accountable to the monies he will spend in these 6 months. So when investigations of money issues come, he will also be called to book. Unfortunately, in a conflict like this, it's a power struggle. It wasn't intended for the good of Rivers people. It was just about ascertaining who is the boss between the FCT minister, the Speaker of the House, who's answerable to the FCT minister, and of course the governor, who should ordinarily be answerable to him because he was his godfather, but now have grown to become a man and wants to have his own independence. So that's the conflict of independence, and they are all suffering for it. Unfortunately, the sole admin would be, or the administrator would have to go to Abuja regularly with Rivers State's fund to go and seek approval for things beyond his approval limit. And that's where it comes in. So, well, I hope that the parties will quickly resolve and put an end to that kind of experience. In my growing up, where I see sole administrators were under military rule, and we're in a democracy that is thriving. And I'm very concerned that we cannot do things that would truncate our democracy.
All right, Dr. John, do you have any comments on that?
Okay, so as it is now, in the eye of democratic tradition, there's no government in Rivers. And as pronounced by the Supreme Court, one of the things that the Supreme Court said that nobody has talked about is the fact that in the concluding part of the judgment, the Supreme Court said that because the governor of Rivers State shut down the House of Assembly, that there's no government in Rivers. If you remember that judgment. And that's the exact same thing the president has done by shutting down both the House of Assembly and the executive arm. So if one arm of government is missing in a democracy, then there cannot be said to be a government in that situation. So we have repeated. You see, Fubara made a mistake of having issues with the House of Assembly, of shutting down the House of Assembly, according to the Supreme Court ruling. We have repeated that same mistake now. So it is logical for anyone to say, as we speak now, because of the absence of the House of Assembly, that there's no government in Rivers. And the import of that is the fact that we have set a very bad precedent and tradition that anybody can run to you know, in Nigeria, whenever we want to support any action, we look back to go look for a similar action. Either in our climb or in the other climb. And we continue to use that to perpetrate whatever it is that is our political ideology or belief. For me, there will have been a better situation. There will have been a better management situation. And I say it again, that a genuine call from Mr. President will have restored peace to Rivers State. And now that we are at where we are, we should know. And one of the things I also want to commend the National Assembly for, in all fairness, is that they introduced some new clauses to the emergency declaration. Because in some circles that I belong to, people have begun to suggest that maybe the president wants to use the back door. After 6 months, he will extend it again. After that one, he will extend. And by the time you extend it twice, we are almost in 2027. But with the inclusions of the National Assembly, I think they should be commended, because this thing must not go past 6 months. If our intention is to create peace for dividend of democracy to be enjoyed by the people.
Gladiators are still fighting after.
No, of course, that was why I was saying, maybe my elder brother Akio didn't get what I was saying the other time. That was why I was saying that we could have, since we have identified the major players, we could have put them on recess so that they have something they are looking forward to. The Minister of FCT is doing well in Abuja. If he goes on recess, on suspension, until after all of these things are resolved, he will have something he's looking forward to.
Is it possible to suspend the FCT minister?
It is possible to suspend anybody.
Let me bring Chris into this, back into the...
Is it not easier, is it not easier to suspend a minister than suspending a governor?
Absolutely, it's easier because the governor was indeed elected.
Ekio, the Senate called for a committee, it was part of their recommendations, a committee of eminent Nigerians to mediate. How effective do you think such committee will be in resolving this crisis? Remember, elders have reached out to both warring parties in the past, and it didn't solve anything. And Nigerians are saying, look, we have a way of committing everything. It's almost a comitocracy. You're going to spend money on certain allowance for this eminent elders. Which other alternatives could be used to resolve this crisis in 6 months?
Okay, so in a garden of lions, if you need to make peace, you don't want to send goats into that farm, eh? So the power player here is the president, the governor, the minister, the House of Assembly. So I want to think that first from River State, previous governors and speakers of River State can be put in a room with this warring faction and Mr. President and some representatives from the National Assembly to look at this issue critically under a presidential supervision, and then look at a middle course where nobody feels defeated. That's how I look at it. Because head or tail, there must be a reconciliation. There is no bad peace. There is no bad peace. There's no good war. There is no bad peace, there's no good war. So no matter how bad this peace is, I think it is better for Governor Fubara to be governor and manage River State with River State people with their mandate than for anything else to happen. The restraint that a lot of Rivers people have taken is commendable, because I don't know what could have happened differently if maybe youth took to the street and there's chaos in River State. The state of emergency would have been another emergency in itself. So I want to commend the conduct of the people of River State, including my Ijaw brothers nationwide, for their patience and listening to wise counsel for most of us who have appealed to them not to do anything differently. And then I want to think that Mr. President retrospectively would also know that he was a bit hasty on this matter. But like I said, it's like when the Supreme Court gives a judgment, it's usually very difficult to reverse itself, except in very rare cases. So he's going to walk through this loop. At best, he's going to shorten the time with which this will happen, and then win the confidence of Nigeria that his intention was ab initio germane. The problem, like you said, is clear. When the Supreme Court says without the House of Assembly, there is no government, and now without the Executive and the House of Assembly, there is still no government. But that's why I said there is a doctrine of necessity to take care of that, because there is no vacuum in government. But that should not be done at the expense of the mandate of the people. So yes, these eminent Nigerians, I think they should focus on people from River State who are very familiar with the turf. Peter Odili is still very much there. Amechi is still very much there. Even Omeya is still very much there. Himself, Wiki is there. Then they pick all the speakers. Luckily, Amechi was also speaker for 8 years under Odili. They pick all the speakers before this time. Chibundo was deputy speaker of the House of Reps. So River State, we've had previous senior citizens who are senators. They may have taken their sides, but before the president, let everybody put the cards bare, and then let a neutral party from the National Assembly mediate and find what is the middle course. The first mediation that was in the social media, I wasn't there. It was like a riot out being read to the governor. Go and do this, go and do this. And the governor has said in public spaces, they told him to accept all the commissioners who voluntarily resigned. He accepted. They told him to present the budget. He was willing to present, but the people were not there. And the AG is blaming the governor for breaking the House of Assembly. Now, let me say that that's a little bit petty in the eyes of the common people. The governor, that place was bombed. If the engineering department or the works ministry says that the building is compromised, let's take it down and build another one. Then they're taking it down. What the House of Assembly should be doing is to demand for a temporary place until our building is built. Infrastructures are not built overnight. He's building other things. He should build that. If he's using it for political tool, then wherever the speaker is seated with the maids, become the House of Assembly, and they can still take action. But it was a case of the governor trying to deal with the House of Assembly members, the House of Assembly members trying to victimize the governor and impeach him, and it's a power struggle. And then you have the umpire who should have settled both parties, who is the minister himself, now taking side already. Now, and then he didn't just take side like a politician that he should be, because this man was local government chairman, was governor for 8 years, was chief of staff to Amici, and was minister before now. So he has the political credential to be able to manage political situation in Rivers State. Okay. However, I do not know why he is basking in the referral of his excitement as if he has never occupied political office before. He's dancing everywhere, he's talking everywhere. He's not the only minister in the Federal Republic, for God's sake. So he should not make himself unpopular by the conduct that he is carrying about, not only just for Rivers State, but around the Federation itself. All right. He's not also the first minister of the FCT, so he should be cautioned to downtone his anger. He's expressing as if it's a frustration. He shouldn't be. He has ruled 8 years. He should be able to manage this thing in the manner that orderly manage those after him, and all of those kind of things. He's struggled with Amici. He shouldn't bring that one back to Rivers State.
Dr. Q, I want to say thank you so much. Our time for this conversation is up. Thank you for your time and thanks for joining us. And also thank you for the angles that you've actually x-rayed this conversation on. We appreciate you. And also, thank you, Mr. Dr. John, for being here.
It's a pleasure.
Always good having you speak on these very critical issues. Well, let's tell you that former Vice President of Nigeria, Atiku Abubakar, and other concerned leaders of thought from Nigeria's major opposition parties have called on President Bola Tinubu to revoke its proclamation declaring a state of emergency in Rivers State. And this was during a press conference in Abuja, which was attended by representatives from major opposition political parties comprising the People's Democratic Party, the Social Democratic Party, and the Labour Party of Nigeria. Our correspondent, who indeed was there, Amadine Uyi, tells us more.
It was a reaction to the declaration of a state of emergency by political stakeholders called from the different opposition political parties in the country. Many of them qualified to be regarded as the nation's political elite. Howbeit, from several opposition political parties, have described the action by the president as unconstitutional.
This action is not only unlawful, but also a clear subversion of democracy and imposition of autocratic federal control over a duly elected state government.
Former chieftain of the All Progressives Congress and former governor of Kaduna State, Nasir El-Rufai, says previous actions by past governments have not been able to stand the test of the judiciary, thus setting a precedent which runs contrary to the proclamation by the president.
2006, the Supreme Court of Nigeria gave a judgment clearly stating that even though by then Daria had been restored to office, but lashed the Obasanjo administration and said that under no circumstances would the emergency provisions in Section 305 be used to remove any elected official. No legislation or constitutional amendment has changed that, so that is the law. No one, no person or authority can remove an elected official, whether governor, deputy governor, or member of the legislature.
The former vice president of the country, on behalf of those present, demanded an immediate reversal of the pronouncement by President Bola Tinubu.
We call on President Bola Tinubu to immediately revoke this unconstitutional proclamation and reinstate the elected governor, deputy governor, and state assembly of Rivers State. We urge the judiciary to act swiftly in striking down this proclamation, as it sets a dangerous precedent that could be used to arbitrarily remove any governor in the future.
The group, also known as the concerned leaders and political stakeholders in the country, also hinted that ahead of the 2027 general elections, they will consolidate their thoughts and opinions so as to serve as a viable opposition against the current APC-led government. In Abuja for News Central, I am Amadine Uyi.
Well, that's it from our bureau chief in Abuja, Amadine Uyi, and we'll get to see what the conversations will lead to. But let's bring you a recap of the top stories we've had so far so good this hour here on Breakfast Central. This hour, Senate approves President Tinubu's emergency rule in Rivers State. A very interesting conversation that we did have a few minutes ago. President Tinubu praises National Assembly for backing state of emergency ruling. And not forgetting, too, the story you just saw, opposition parties call for end to state of emergency in Rivers State. this conversation, we're certain, will continue. But let's tell you what's coming up next here on Breakfast Central.
Coming up next on Breakfast Central, Atiku Obi El-Rufai launch coalition to oust Tinubu in 2027. We'll bring you the newspaper front pages. Remember, we like to keep things interactive here, so you can call in to share your thoughts with us. And of course, a review of the week's biggest stories. Do stay with us. Breakfast Central continues shortly. You're welcome back to Breakfast Central. The 2023 presidential candidate of the People's Democratic Party, Alhaji Atiku Abubakar, has announced the formation of a coalition of opposition political parties to challenge President Bola Tinubu in the 2027 election. Atiku made the declaration yesterday at a press conference held at the Shehu Musa Yaradua Center in Abuja, where he spoke on behalf of opposition party leaders.
Parties in the country.
Your Excellency, sir, my name is Amadin Uyi. I'm with News Central Television. Sir, this coalition speaking against the events in River State. The last time we have seen representatives from the major opposition parties, the PDP, the SDP, and the Labour Party. We know that in politics, sometimes it takes one event for politicians to rise up in unison to say enough is enough. And the last time we saw this kind of coalition was prior to the 2015 general elections. Sir, are we seeing this united front go ahead into the 2027 general election, thus assuming is the bet of a major opposition against the APC? Thank you.
Yes, sir.
Well, the event which brought together key opposition figures also served as a platform to denounce Tinubu's recent state of emergency declaration in River State. Atiku, alongside former Kaduna State Governor Nasir El-Rufai, Labour Party spokesperson Yunusa Tanko, and former Deputy Speaker of the House of Representatives Emeka Ihedioha described the emergency rule as unconstitutional and an attack on democracy. Well, right now, let's take our time to also mention that the coalition indeed will also looked into the decision of the suspension of the governor of River State. But let's go straight into this conversation right now as we bring our guest who joins us very quickly all the way from Makurdi. We do have Dr. Yunusa Tanko, a member of the coalition. Welcome and thank you so much this morning for joining us.
Thank you very much for having me. Good morning, Nigerians.
Good morning. So for a broader perspective and for the benefit of our viewers, what is this coalition? One major question has been asked since yesterday. Is a coalition a political party, or is it just individuals, which of course we've said and known, coming together to denounce what has been happening, especially in this current administration? And let me put it in the right perspective. The members of this coalition, are they planning to form a political party?
Well, at the moment, it is very clear that there are leaders who have contested election, and some of them who are members of other political parties, or who have come out to challenge the status quo. I remember very well His Excellency Peter Obi has always said that if we are to coalesce with people, to join force together with different other individuals for the purpose of fighting for Nigeria, fighting in such a way, challenging the status quo in such a way that it replicates the issue of health, it replicates the issue of security, the political survival of the country, as it were, to talk about education and pulling people out of poverty. Those are the key issues in which he will be ready to engage. And so therefore, we are of the belief that this particular discussion that took place yesterday will be in line with such aspiration of His Excellency Peter Gregory Obi. And the target is the people first, because there is this complete neglect of the Nigerian people as against the interests of groups and individuals who do not care about the survival of the people. A case in study is what happened in Rivers State. And we all are aware that once a situation of personal interest and selfish and greedy interests of individuals, it is the people that actually suffer. As we stand today, when you look at the constitutional provision, you may want to look at what is the provisions that gave birth to this state of emergency in the states, and the people who are residing therein, be the beneficiary or the protected individuals at the end of this selfish and greedy attempt to grab power. So for us, it's a very important discussion based on those particular factors that I mentioned earlier on.
Now, Mr. Sir, we've seen the historical rivalry between Alhaji Atiku Abubakar and former Governor Peter Obi in the past. How realistic is this coalition? Can they hold together in unison before 2027? Looking at the heavyweights and personalities involved, because every one of them, even Madam Nasir El-Rufai, is fit to run for the presidency of the Federal Republic of Nigeria. So how soon do you think they can keep this united front up until 2027?
Every Nigerian that have met the provisions of the Constitution of the Federal Republic of Nigeria has the right to run for election within his purview. And one thing that needs to be made clear is that everything that has to do with the interests of the Nigerian people, which is the key word, of course, we will sustain this particular struggle. It is evident that every attempt by this particular government is to truncate democracy. Truncating democracy in such a way that it makes the people look very stupid, if I may use the word. Because on a continuous basis, they keep on trampling on the rules and regulation of the engagement with level of high disdain. And that, of course, will bring in more people to join forces together to challenge this particular unhealthy and unacceptable position of this government. And that, of course, is the situation at the moment. So we will continue as a group to continue to challenge the status quo until the right thing is done. For us is to ensure that democracy that we all enjoy at the moment is not truncated. neither is being stiffened. The voice of the people cannot continue to be stiffened by individuals. Let me make this assertion. There is this narrative in the public domain that the president is a master of the game. He can manipulate anything that he or she wants and then get results. But let me admonish and try to encourage Nigerians that there's no master of any game as long as this particular game is not in the interest of the people because they are in the majority. They can challenge and say no to impunity and to level of disdain. So Nigerians should be well aware that nobody can continue to hold the country at ransom because of his personal interest and his greed against the Nigerian people. And that will not stand. So as far as we are concerned, we will continue to energize the people to do the right thing based on the Constitution of the Federal Republic of Nigeria.
Well, I would say it's a mixed reaction, especially from Nigerians, seeing what took place yesterday, especially during the press conference. And Nigerians are wondering if it's going to be yet another, show where people come together, speak, and yet it's all talk and no action. And yet at the same time, each person would be looking forth to see his own interests. Can you speak a little bit more on the interest? The interest. Why we say the interest, it's because you do have Nasir El-Rufai, who has just moved to a new political party, the SDP. And you also have the PDP struggling with its own crisis. And Labour Party seems to be one party that has remained very troubled in terms of being in troubled waters. So how do you think the coalition should be taken seriously, looking at the fact that they've not been able to solve their own internal crisis, and yet here they are pushing for a front to solve the crisis of the nation? This is getting a lot of persons talking,
Okay. I'm sure you've watched the videos and then you watched the presentation. There was no single political party chairman at that particular sitting. None. There were only individuals who have run for election and some other members of that political party, like in my intro. So that is to tell you that this is an upfront mobilization of capable Nigerians who can speak in the interest of the Nigerian people. When the time comes for a political party or political party involvement, that will also be announced. But at the moment, the issue is about fighting for the soul of Nigeria. And that is exactly what we are doing. Interest, of course, will come in. But at the moment now, the most important interest is to save our democracy and save the country from anarchy and total destruction.
Now, how do you save the country from anarchy and total destruction? Does this coalition has a clear, identified policy agenda beyond just, let's oppose the president? Because the last time Nigerians did this, vote Jonathan out by all means necessary. We had a mega party, the CPC came together, ACN, and they formed APC. Just looking at a decade plus down the line, what the results has been. So Nigerians are being more circumspect. Are these guys just doing this for their own interest, for the sake of let's just oppose the president and remove it? Is there a clear policy agenda by this coalition to save Nigeria?
Now, clearly, I've mentioned those particular agenda that joined us together. It's not only about fighting for position of power.
A document that Nigerians can see, the transparency, a written document so that Nigerians can scrutinize.
Oh, of course, that will be presented at a later time. But the most important thing that you need to know is about the survival of the country. And individuals, we are talking about the former Vice President of the Federal Republic of Nigeria. You're talking about the former governor of Anambra State, who is a front runner with the Nigerian youth. 12.5 million of them almost in the kitty. You're talking about Madan Nasiru El-Rufai, you're talking about Emeka Ihedioha, you're talking about a lot of Nigerians who are at that particular meeting. And you will also know that this particular person are not playing and we are not joking. Anything that has to do with the survival, because most of us have fought diligently for democracy. And to see that democracy is being trampled upon directly by personal interest and greed, that is totally unacceptable. There is no quarters in this country that have not condemned this particular attempt to truncate the democracy and probably making this particular unacceptable pronouncement in Rivers State. And then you look at the whole thing within the National Assembly and all. There was no single very cohesive debate with regard to the removal of that particular, with the removal of the governor of Rivers State. There was no single debate, and there is a particular provision that says certain amount of percentage. There was no voting that took place. That is totally against. So what you are having is that unconstitutionality being meant on the constitutionality. That is wrong, completely wrong. And we will not stand only to make only press statement, but of course we will take it further to ensure that the right thing is done. They have now kicked off attack on the Nigerian people and our democracy. And as a Democrat, we will resist this particular very heinous crime against the people. And that is totally a found fact. So any documentation, any provisions that need to be made to ensure that you understand that the target is not about power grabbing. No, we have made it very, very clear. The idea is to ensure that we have a nascent democracy that will be enjoyed by every Nigerian, irrespective of whether you are in position of power or not.
All right. Anyway, we do get it now, and I want to say thank you so much, National Coordinator for the Obedient Movement and member of Coalition, Dr. Yunusa Tanko, for joining us. Thanks for speaking deeply on this and expanding on it. Thanks for your time.
Thank you very much, and God bless the Federal Republic of Nigeria. Thank you.
All right. We'll go for a quick break. When we come back, we'll take a look at what the front pages are saying, especially looking at the coalition story, not forgetting to the National Assembly, also giving a nod to President Tinubu's emergency rule, and much more. You can also be part of the front pages by calling the numbers. We'll go for a break. We'll be right back. Stay with us. Welcome back. It's time for us to take a look at the front pages this morning on Breakfast Central, on News Central. We do have our guest who joins us this morning to discuss it. And we have the Head Strategy and Public Affairs, Nairametrics, Wade Ahimie, joins us this morning. Good to see you on a Friday morning. It seems like you're not, perturbed about the situation of things in Nigeria.
Yeah, it's not reflecting in you.
As I walked in today, I see you guys are all in black. What are we burying today?
Well, it's the state of democracy in our country. Okay. It's not very bright in our country.
That's why I'm still wearing green, because I believe in my country, Nigeria.
Fantastic.
Oh, I see. Fantastic, eh? All right, let's get straight to our very first paper this morning, and also we'll put the phone number on the screen. We'd like to hear from you and know what you think about the ongoing crisis in River State. So go ahead and give us a call right away and drop your contributions. But let's look at our very first paper. The Punch is what we're going to this morning. The story there says National Assembly backs Tinubu as Fubara counters President's allegations. He did counter the allegations just yesterday, talking about what he feels wasn't properly, right in terms of the facts. He was more of the facts. Let's look at another story very quickly there. It says 25% oversubscription of first. All right, that's a different thing. That's a business, by the way. We'll leave that. APC backs Tinubu as Atiku Obi El-Rufai intensify coalition talks. We just had that conversation right now with someone who was seated there with the former vice president and the others and talked about, no plans for merger. It's just about, getting democracy right. Federal government panel reconvenes Monday over Naira for crude crisis. Big problem. I'm happy Wade is here. So Wade, let's start off with that one first. I want to take your thoughts. We've talked about River State for so long. Let's talk about this Naira for crude issue.
Why does it seem like NNPC is hell-bent on making life harder for Nigerians or sabotaging?
Or is there somebody else trying to sabotage the situation, maybe?
That's a very, very hard...
Benga. Yeah.
Sorry, Benga. I always call you Olumide. I don't know why. Maybe
My brother's name is Olumide.
So maybe that's why. That's a very hard statement. So, every time I've always spoken about this Naira for crude. Brilliant idea. I think the PIA provides for that too. Those who are extremely engrossed in it should please correct me if I'm wrong. And it does make sense. But the question I always ask is, what's the exchange rate? Because there must be an exchange rate, because all crude transactions are denominated in dollars.
But when Nigeria, the crude is sourced from Nigeria.
But if everything, or 90% or 99% of the things you do in terms of doing your costing, in terms of doing your projections for sale, is based on the currency that the market uses to determine the prices, then that's what it comes out at. Do you understand? And all this will now depend on exchange rate. And I think the issue or the challenge you're having, in my own opinion, I really don't know the details of why, but I think the challenge is, at what exchange rate does it come to you? But like I've always proposed, Dangote's business model, is it just based on Nigeria's crude? If he didn't have Nigeria's crude, was he not going?
No, he does import it.
So let me finish. A refinery is meant to refine crude, all forms of crude. You cannot, Nigeria's supply of crude cannot even be enough for Dangote for a 650,000 barrel per day refining. So at the end of the day, how have you set out your business model and your business structure? Does it have to do with where do I get crude from, or am I solely dependent on one supplier, or for maybe 50-60% of my supply? And that for me will be a wrong business model. Why? Because at the end of the day, you must look at what the weighted average cost of refining those products are, and how you get them to the market, whichever market you want to get them to, whether it's local or international. Are you with me? Now, the other things that would count also will be the cost of labor, and then the cost of all the other infrastructure expenditure that are local. Are you with me? Which are paid for in local currency. So which will help you determine what the final cost of refined products is. And if that is being done and is being done properly, are you with me? This will be an added advantage. But I think the sticky point for me, and I really don't know except they come out and tell us, is at what exchange rate are we going to take this crude? Because that also now helps Nigeria determine at what cost does it come out. And if I do that and I sell it at that exchange rate, will I be able to get enough funding towards providing for the exchange rate that I would incur in producing that crude?
What about just maintaining the status quo, the Naira for crude? Because everybody seems to be happy with it.
Yeah, but Naira for crude, like I've explained now, is crude market is priced in dollars. So when you say naira for crude, how much naira am I paying for a barrel of crude? That's the question. And what determines that is an exchange rate.
Because it may start looking like we're starting to tiptoe backwards into subsidy again, where in order for you to meet up with the exchange rates, the government has to,
and like I said, what government needs to do is sit down and say, what's the cost of production in terms of bringing out this crude? What margin do I want to make? And then I put it in there. And then I say, oh, this is how much it costs in naira. And to be fair to everybody, and also to be fair to those who also do business or buy up from the government and sell the crude in international market, there must be, yes, even if you're going to give a discount, but the government has to be able to make enough money. And that exchange rate has to reflect current exchange rate positions. And that's my opinion. And that's, I think, is where the sticky issue is.
The NNPC is meeting with the Dangote Group on Monday, and there will be ongoing conversations. So we'll see what happens. But the effect of that is, of course, Nigerians don't want to pay extra naira for petrol. And if we go to the dollar,
we must always be careful when we say Nigerians don't want to pay extra.
Do you want to?
I would pay the price at which is competitive and it comes into the open market.
But the only competitive price we like to pay is the one that is lesser.
So if you live in a world, are you with me, where everything is given to you for free or is given to you at a subsidized rate, then you should be prepared to pay for that lesser. However, if you live in a world where market economies or market factors determine, are you with me, demand and supply determines the pricing, then you will pay the price based on demand and supply. So prices will never be the same price across board.
Okay, now let's look at the Daily Independent newspaper. The headline on the Daily Independent says, lawyers query NAS determination of 2/3 by voice vote as lawmakers okay state of emergency in a Rivers State. The lawyers have been arguing. There are people that say, you know, if you have people with baritone voices and the yeas and they say nay, they say nay, their voices might drown out the other voices. And because of the importance of this sort of issue, it shouldn't have gone to a voice vote. What do you make of it?
I do agree that it shouldn't have been a voice vote. We should know who voted for.
Yes, the constituents want to. I want to know what my representative.
Exactly, yes. And if my representative is not aligning with what my expectations are, I'm not just saying me as the person or the people that you represent. Yeah. Then next elections we should go out and checkmate that. However, the issue of 2/3, are you with me, dates back to at least 46 years from what I know, 1979, 12 2/3. So I've always been scared of 2/3 when it comes to that.
The mathematicians.
The mathematicians. And if I was writing a piece last night, and I think I'll post it later on my LinkedIn post about 12 2/3 in 1979, 2/3 and the issues, the politics of Nigeria, and he has come back to again 46 years later, 2/3 and the politics of Nigeria. I remember when the then who then became Attorney General, Richard Akinjide, argued it to the Supreme Court and said 2/3 of 19 states was 12 2/3, meaning that you had to get 25% of 2/3 of the 19th state, of the 13th state for you. And I guess that's what's playing out here. And to get 2/3, all you required yesterday was 240 votes. 200, according to the news that is circulating, 243 people were in the room. And with the voice vote, the ayes had it.
There's no way you can hear the nays.
Well, I don't know. I wasn't there, so I can't speak.
Maybe we should introduce technology into the system. But we have a caller there, all the way from Niger State. Jibril joins us this morning. Good morning to you, Jibril.
Hello.
Yes, good morning. Go ahead, please.
Hello, good morning.
Good morning.
Good morning.
Yeah, I would like to touch on the issue of this coalition of 18 and also whatsoever that played out in the National Assembly yesterday. It is crystal clear to all of us that yes, We have the senators and the House of Representatives as well. But the point is, are they representing Nigeria? The answer is no. Rather, they represent their. Before now, Akpabio said they are there not to work in accordance with what the president wants. So what I was expecting to play out in the National Assembly yesterday, exactly what I expect to play out, and that was exactly what played out yesterday. Then coming to the issue of a coalition between Atiku, Erufai, and some other people like that, why are we deceiving ourselves? If they are coming together to form another merger, okay. There is this thing that says the devil you know is better than the angel you get. I've known these people. They have been in this cycle for a very long time, if we can say the truth to ourselves. So what are we saying? APC was that part that we don't know before now.
Okay. All right.
Thank you
so much.
And I like what he said about the coalition. And you say you're a coalition of opposition. Are you with me? And you couldn't push your members to at least get a dissent, a dissenting voice in whether it's the House or the
statements.
Senate.
Yes.
Are you with me? You can't be a leader, and I see politics being played all across the world. I watch it on TV, where even within the parties that are ruling, you have dissenting voices, and everybody is trying to strike the kind of deals that make things happen. But if leadership of parties or leaders within the party or within the so-called opposition cannot get one member of the opposition, are you with me, to have a dissenting voice, then it beats me what exactly we're coaliting. Where is it coaliting?
But in fairness, a member of the Labour Party did raise a motion for a head count at the House of Representatives.
They said there were 243 people there. When you required 2/3 of 360 is 240. And if the ayes had it, then it means 243 people voted. That's what you say.
I mean, that's
However, like I said, some of these things are based on how do you push a number of things. Should you have used the voice vote? If you had dissenting opinions there, I believe in my heart of heart, and this is my opinion, that there would not have been a voice vote.
Joe mentioned something about the use of technology.
Yeah. I mean, we've seen this
You're
done
in General
on different
Assembly.
parts. Everybody who votes. I mean, I think it's high time maybe the National Assembly should have that technology where
so
it's time to vote,
just let me interject you. You don't need technology for that. People have voted from time immemorial. Are you with me? Even when you are voting in assemblies, before technology came in, it was either you raised your hand and you counted, or they gave you a piece of paper and then you noted what you were voting for. It's not just saying those who agree, say A, aye. But even then, when you say the ayes, are you with me? There is a count. I've watched British, I've watched so many things. I've even watched this National Assembly on the ayes and the nays. So what exactly are we talking about? So what happens when we watch them is now different from what happens, I'm presuming, because I wasn't there. Should it now be different from what happens when you close the door? That's the question we need to ask ourselves.
Still on the front page of the Daily Independent, and this news has made the rounds throughout the week about the National Youth Service Corps member that was complaining about state of hardship. I don't know if this is a response to her complaints, the immediate implementation, or if it was in the works. I do understand it was in the works, but the implementation seems to be immediate. Good news for corps members, Benny and friends. Corps members receive 77,000 allowance from March.
Bingo, let them
so,
you know.
So, Joe, the coffee that you get in the morning might come with a lot of pride from next month. Like, do you know how much I earn? Why should I make a coffee?
What if I'm dead before the coffee comes?
You also have to remember that they had said that this 77,000 would be implemented immediately. it wasn't, and it's taken a drag.
Immediately was last year.
That was last year.
September.
And it's taken a drag up until
because
March.
This is a new DG of
We've
the
also seen
NYC.
the CNG buses. They said it's going to be, we did see some, what am I going to call it? Would I say camouflage?
Well, no, it was a CNG truck that
exploded.
drama
The SSA came out and debunked that on X and said, oh, look at the CNG, look at it, one of the cannons, I see it didn't explode, so people should stop. And people said that's just one. That explosion, did you see the video? It couldn't just be mere fire. It was a massive explosion.
Yes.
It even cleaned out the rest of the cars. Fire does that, but at that magnitude, you should know. But then again, he is the SSA, and then he goes on to defend. But
doesn't mean
my
he
point
should
is,
lie.
are we not having too much in codes, promises being made and nothing really happens? And the NYC
So you seem not to, you want to see it first.
See it first.
I mean, the DJ has said March is going to end next week. He said these guys are going to get paid. And you're still doubting him.
March is going to end the week after.
That's 2 weeks, right?
Yes.
Now, well, maybe a week
technically.
So,
I mean, I'm just surprised that somebody makes a statement less than 10 days to the end of the month, and Joe is doubting him.
Yeah, I don't know why Joe should be doubting him.
I'm not doubting him.
So you wait till April 1 or April 5th.
Okay, we'll come back to this.
And April 5th
We'll hold you
and
up
decide
on this
whether they've been paid or not. And if
I mean, for a new director general of the NYC
that's
to
a
come
bold
out openly,
statement.
it's a very bold statement. Yeah. You think he'll put his reputation online?
Bold statements. I mean, bold statements have also been made on the CNG. True. Oh, don't worry, the buses will be all over everywhere and so on. And we've not seen it. We have not seen it. Anyway, let's take.
Do you enter buses?
Yes, I do.
Okay.
Yes, I do.
Okay, that's fine. I just wanted to be sure.
Yes, I do.
And you've not entered one that is run by CNG. Don't know.
So when I say CNG in this point, I mean let the CNG buses. They said it
was that's what I'm saying.
Everywhere.
Yeah, so that's what I'm saying. How do you know all the buses?
How do I know?
No, of course you see.
The BRT buses in Lagos.
Let me ask. Why I'm saying this is this. When you have, it's the same way you have a bus that uses petrol. Are you with me? You don't see the petrol tank. Exactly. So how do you know which one is running?
They are labeled. I've seen an Ogun State, they write CNG.
One, they're labeled. Two, they said they were going to hand them over, of course, to the Transport Workers Association.
I'm playing.
No, it's good. It's fine. It's fine. They said we're going to hand them over to the National
Transport Association. I don't want those where people who make statements on
only seen
there.
then they gave some to the Students Association and so on and so forth.
And it's fine. And what I don't want is us to say, oh, they said, and we haven't seen. Maybe it hasn't reached the magnitude.
Well, that's
another thing.
But NYC will be very easily verified.
And how you know it hasn't
been? We'll verify the NYC, I'm sure, in a couple of weeks when we are speaking again.
A lot was said. If we're going to go into the CNG conversation, there's a lot. There were cases of, okay, fine, if you get the buses, there's some filling stations you go to, they'll fill your gas at a discount and so on and so forth. All of those things are things that we need to actually clarify. Now, as we wrap up.
Yes. I'm glad you mentioned the Abuja explosion, because President Tinubu has ordered investigation into the explosion in Abuja. Yet another tanker explosion. What's really going on with these tankers, especially in the last few months?
This is the third investigation now.
And nothing has come out from the first. Nothing has come out from the first.
We have not had the report of the first that happened in February.
The second or the third?
The one from Delta State, nothing.
One from Niger State. Now this one in
Two
Abuja.
from Niger State, nothing.
But
the president has ordered the inquiry.
Yes, he ordered.
So the inquiry is still on, I guess. Are you with me? Maybe they published we as those in the media haven't received the communique, but the fact remains that there is an inquiry. But
they said the ban on 60,000 litre trucks will take effect from March. So I guess
maybe we should send our correspondent out to ask those questions, whether the 60,000 trucks are still running. One of the things I always like, and I always tell you guys, is let's go out and confirm these things. But like we know, and it's not just in Nigeria, there are different stages of inquiry. Yes. So until we get to the point where I don't know which paper is the final, whether it's the blue or the green or the white, are you with me? But we will go through those 3 stages. And people, when you finish the deliberations and you write the report, then you have the white paper, and then people will review again, and then you have the blue paper, and then when you're done, you have the green
Thankfully,
paper.
our democracy is now very rich. We could use an FOI, Freedom of Information request to get
and we can get all that, use the FOI.
Yeah. I'll wait for you, Benga, to make that request so we go on from there. I want to say thank you to all our viewers here on Breakfast Central. It's been a fantastic one all the way from Monday down to Friday. Thank you so much, Wade, for joining us.
Thank you as always.
Sharing your thoughts, especially on the Naira for crude conversation.
Thank you for having me.
Okay, my name is Joe Hansen. I want to say thank you for staying with us. And he is
Benga Aborowa. Make sure you join Breakfast Extra on Saturday and Sunday. The conversation continues there. See you next week. Bye-bye.